we knew each other for 4 or 5 years by the point this actually happened. And one day I paid him for the wine and he just didn't pay the winery. And he just dropped off the face of the earth. The emails were bouncing, the phone number never answered or was off. Nobody knew where he'd gone. The winery couldn't find him. It was just crazy. And at one point, the winery actually called the police, and the police were just like, "We wouldn't do anything about this. Like, this is, not of interest to us. Like, take him to court if you want to." But the amount of money it would cost you to take someone to court in Italy over something like this, the math isn't mathing. So it's not something that I could really have done, because it would have been a risk, and it would have been a risk of me losing another 50 grand just trying to get it.
Hi, and welcome to the Build and Exit podcast. I'm Julie Wilkerson, and I'm the owner and founder of Wilkerson Accounting Solutions. I started the podcast off the back of the work we do in my firm. We specialise in mergers and acquisitions, and we have guests on the show that talk about business growth, exit planning, acquisitions, and really just talking about how we can develop and grow a business. So I'm really excited today to have Kath Jones. She's the founder and director of the Think Wine Group. And it's a really interesting topic today, a little bit different to what we normally do, but I think it's really good to have a bit of variety. So Catherine's owned the Think Wine Group for 4 years and had a bit of a, we could say, mishap. Effectively, I mean, we'll go into it more in the podcast, but effectively lost about 60K from a third-party agent who stole some money. She subsequently then went on to get some funding, which we'll talk about, went on a little bit, and then the funding didn't materialise, and that ended up in 100K of debt. However, Catherine is still here with a successful company, so it's going to be a really interesting story, and I think positive one for a lot of people to say, yes, things go wrong, but we can still make it. So I just want to say thanks for coming on, Catherine.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And tell us a bit about a background and why you came on the show.
Yeah. So I actually have two businesses. We're here primarily today to speak about Think Wine Group, but the whole reason Think Wine Group started was due to my influencer marketing background. So I have another company called We Are Social Nation. We manage people with really large social media followings, primarily Instagram and TikTok. So most of our clients have between 500,000 followers up to, say, 10 million followers. And the whole reason Think Wine was ever founded, so Think, just so you know, it's a premium, it's a low sugar, it's low calorie, it's vegan, it's organic, it's low sulfite. It's basically as good as you could make a wine, but without removing the alcohol. Because we wanted to keep the fun part, of course, but it's as healthy as you could get it without removing alcohol, basically. And the whole reason I founded it was because I was working with e-commerce businesses, and we were growing them rapidly through the use of influencer marketing. And I realized that I wanted my own product to utilize this model on, and obviously sell wine direct to customer via influencers. Also, my influencers were all really health conscious, so they were turning vegan, they were big on sustainability, they were doing a keto diet, some of them were even diabetic. So it raised the question of, what are we missing? And it is like a low sugar, low calorie, bubbly brand. So that's why we launched. So I still have Social Nation, it's influencer marketing, and then I have Think Wine as well, which obviously is the story with all the tales to tell.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Thank you. So we'll get into the nitty gritty then. So I know you mentioned to me that you had this third party agent. I suppose the end result was you lost 60K from this partnership. So maybe you could just tell a bit of background about why that formed and sort of how that came to fruition.
Yeah, of course. So when I was starting the company, I knew that I wanted the business it was going to be a bespoke product. It was made specifically for me. It was my recipe. I would create it. I didn't want a wine that was off the shelf that I would just put my label on and call my own, because effectively that's what most wine brands are that you see inside, Tesco, Asda, Aldi. There are probably 3 of them are the exact same product, but they've all got a different label on from a different brand. So when I was originally trying to create Think Wine, I needed to find a winery that was ready to become like my partner. And so, they'd work alongside me. It was really difficult because I don't speak Italian to, I guess, find and go and visit these wineries without any pre-existing relationships. So I went online and I found a wine agent, this guy called Giuseppe. And I met him in Italy when I went. We got on like a house on fire. He was amazing. He's worked in wine for many, many years. He drove me I went back and forth to Italy about 5 to 10 times. So every time I would go, he'd meet me at the airport, he'd take me around, he'd check me into my hotel. He was really, really great. And in the end, working alongside him for months, we found our winery. And then we were able to create this specific wine. And we were able to negotiate on the price as well, because obviously Giuseppe spoke the language, he had pre-existing relationships. It went really well as a partnership bearing in mind I worked for him for 2 years prior to launching. So we knew each other for 4 or 5 years by the point this actually happened. And one day I paid him for the wine and he just didn't pay the winery. And he just dropped off the face of the earth. The emails were bouncing, the phone number never answered or was off. Nobody knew where he'd gone. The winery couldn't find him. It was just crazy. And at one point, the winery actually called the police, and the police were just like, "We wouldn't do anything about this. Like, this is, not of interest to us. Like, take him to court if you want to." But the amount of money it would cost you to take someone to court in Italy over something like this, the math isn't mathing. So it's not something that I could really have done, because it would have been a risk, and it would have been a risk of me losing another 50 grand just trying to get it. So, we tried our options. We sent a couple of legal letters. We contacted everyone we knew who knew him. Basically, nobody wanted to pick it up. No one wanted to help. And in the end, I realised this is a lost cause. Like, this money is not coming back. And he's disappeared off the face of the earth. So I had to kind of admit defeat and just be like, right, I'm going to have to find a way to move on, which is when, as I said to you when we spoke, I never really wanted to look at an investor yet, because I was bootstrapped and, cash was tight, but I always had that kind of 50 grand buffer in the bank. And so I knew I could carry on for a little bit longer without needing to onboard someone. I wanted to wait it out as long as possible before, so that when I did get someone, I was going to get the correct price and stuff on the shares. So I went out and started looking for investments and just put myself out there, really. I was I guess networking with a lot of people, and in the end I got introduced. Do you want me to get into this point? Yeah.
Well, I just think if you go to the agent then that took the money, when you signed up with the agent, did you have like T's and C's with him? Did you have contracts and things in place? Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it?
That doesn't matter in Italy.
No. And how?
Well,
I think we have a similar thing really in the UK. I think it's hard, especially through companies. But how many times had you ordered through him then? Because it was a couple of years, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'd been ordering for years. It was multiple times, I'd say. We would usually order at least twice a year. So I ordered at least 8 times off him, and everything's always been fine. And bearing in mind, the relationship's great because I've met him so much over the years, and we've gone out for dinner, and we've had, we've grown a friendship, if anything, which is why, it was so just hard to accept and heartbreaking, really.
But so do you have a new agent now?
No, I go direct now.
You go direct to the factories yourself.
I would not be trusting anyone again.
No,
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know how it works like that. He's given all agents a bad name, only in my mind, of course. But yeah, I wouldn't do that again.
No, because I suppose paying anyone up front I suppose that ends up being a bit of a risk, doesn't it, if you're always paying up front? So okay, you went out to find the investor then, so you were networking, and then I know you had a bit of a difficulty with the investor because in the end it didn't materialize. So
Yeah.
how did you end up finding the investor?
I was actually introduced by a friend, so I think that is where my defenses were down right away. You know, if someone you know and you trust is introducing you to someone, then naturally you're a little less, I guess, cautious. Also, I don't think, I mean, I've obviously experienced like theft from Giuseppe, but also like from a member of staff previously, they've stolen from me. So I guess I've experienced theft, but I've never really experienced like fraud as such. And so I can't say that I ever even like considered that an investor could be like fraudulent or a fraudster. I know there's fraud. When I think of fraud, I'm thinking of like, you know, people phoning houses and saying like, oh, hi, I'm your bank, give me some money, or like, what's your login, you know, when you get the text and it's like, oh, we're the Royal Mail. That's what I think of when I think of fraud. I'd never really thought of someone literally pretending to be someone they are not. That seems like it's just a movie. But that's basically what happened to me. Yeah, I got introduced to an investor via a friend. Therefore, I really, you know, kind of trusted that he was legit. And we went through the whole process. I met up with him in America. He was an American, and we met in the US. You know, it was all great. He taught a great game. Told us that he had an island in Australia that he'd just bought. He had all the press releases to prove it. You know, I googled the island, googled his name. It's all there. He's buying this island. So he was very, very good fraudulent man. Like, I'm not the only one who's been targeted since this happened to me. I actually posted all about it on LinkedIn, and I've had about 15 people message me saying I'm going through the same thing right now. So he's still at it, despite, like, you know, we've done everything we can, like telling the police, telling the FBI, reporting him to fraud, you know, outing him on LinkedIn, all of that, and yet he is still out there. But he's very, very good at what he does, and he has you really believing. So we went through everything, you know, the contractual stage, you know, everything was okay. We're going to get you in. We've got shares in the Hard Rock Cafe. We're going to get you into the Hard Rock Cafe. We're going to do this, that, and the other. So we truly believed that, you know, we've made it. This is amazing. You know, it's pulled us out. But it actually turns out like that he was literally just not who he said he was, and he doesn't actually have a penny, and he doesn't actually have a fund, and it was all just a lie. Now, people always say, well, what use is that for him to pretend to give you money? That's what I thought as well. And the whole reason it went on for a whole year is because I couldn't believe that someone would pretend to give you money. Like, I'd get it if he was stealing money off me. If I was investing in his fund, then I understand that, because obviously the outcome is you're getting money. But to just mess someone along for a year, you know, to the point where it was full gaslighting. Like, Kath, of course the money's come. I've just transferred it. Like, telling me you just transferred it 2 minutes ago. It never came. And it was just constant, like, gaslighting. So I just couldn't believe, why would you string someone along if it wasn't the plan to give them money? Anyway, it turns out the way they're set up, so they have like a fake fund, and so they were using like their allegiance with me as such, like, to get other people to put into their fund. So I was one of a couple of other businesses. So they would say, you know, oh, look at this deck. This is Think Wine. If you invest with us, you're going to have shares in Think Wine. If you invest with, I don't know, but I'll just make up a name, Poo Wine, you know, they're gonna, then, you know, you're gonna get shares in Poo Wine. Basically, they had all these companies with all our decks, and they were pretending they were associated with us, showing these people our LinkedIn pages and everything to get money off them. And then they were then taking the money from the fund and embezzling it or doing whatever they were doing with it. But we obviously, as the businesses that were being, he was pretending he was going to invest in, we obviously never seen any of it. So these other people are thinking that they're investing in us, and then he's keeping it, and we're never getting anything.
And oh, blimey. So has that had any
Mm.
repercussions on you from the investment side of things? Because I suppose
No,
they're promising people shares in your company, and
I
is
don't
that
think
what?
it's as direct as that, because it's like, if you put into our fund, then, for example, it's going to be these 4 businesses or whatever, but the deal is always between the person and the fund. So the only reason I know this is because people have found me since on LinkedIn and been like, hello, have you heard about us? Because, we've heard about you, because we got pitched that we were going to be, working with you, blah, blah, blah. And also, since my posts come out, people have seen it and gone, oh yeah, by the way, they used your name to kind of legitimize themselves. And we thought, we were going to be involved with your business and your growth. And so, but no one's ever come at me because of it, because everyone is aware that it is him. Everyone is aware. So the war is not between that side and that side. The war is purely on him.
Yeah. So it went a year. I mean, when did you realise, hold on a minute, something's not right. I've got to stop this.
I didn't not realise. I just blanked it out that, I couldn't bring myself to believe it, because if I brought myself to believe it, that would mean that my company was going to be basically in the bin. Because what had happened was, I had started, because of this deal going through and it all being so legitimate, and our deal signed off and everything, I'm saying, right, we need a van because I can't manage the deliveries anymore. I've only got a small car. I need a van to be able to manage the distribution. Yeah, go and buy a van, just get it on finance. It's fine. Your money will be in your bank next week. So, crack on. So I'd do things like this. I'd buy a van. So I'm racking up debt, and I'm thinking, by the time it kind of hit me that it was fake. I'm like, wow, if this is fake, I'm in so deep that my company will not survive this. So surely it can't be fake. And that's why I kind of continued on. I'd say 6 months in, I knew there was a big problem. But it continued for another 6 months because I was desperate to believe it, and I didn't know how else I was going to get out of it. But then, finally, the penny had dropped long before, if I'm honest. But when the penny dropped to the point where I can't do this for my own mental health because it's driving me nuts, and I just got to accept that this was all a lie. Then, only then, was I able to start trying to recover.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, I see that. I think, although yours is in this investor scenario, I think it's quite normal, like for people to sort of, I suppose, in a way, bury their head in the sand. I see it a lot in the acquisitions. When people want the deal to be true, so they'll kind of know the seller's not giving them the information, and they'll try and rush to head to terms, thinking it's all going to be, hunky dory when they get to due diligence, and then deals are just dragging on for months, probably even sometimes over a year, and they never get anywhere because ultimately it never improves. And potentially financially, they're not as, maybe you were hit financially, so it's not always a financial hit, but I think it's the emotional hit of something like that as well.
It's the worst part, 100%. It was the worst part, because in my lifetime, I'm not an anxious person. I'm just not. I'm not naturally like that way. And so in my life, I've never lost sleep over anything until this.
And two things relatively closely, with the agent and then the investor.
That's what it was. It was, a series of events, and literally thinking, right, if this doesn't pay off now, I'm going to lose my business, and I've got staff. And anyway, the whole thing just exploded, and that is what left me in such a state in terms of my mental health, which I've never experienced before, to the point where I was always, a bit skeptical when people would tell me oh, I can't sleep at night because I'm worrying over, something small, which to me it's very small, but obviously to them it's not. But I could never empathize because I'm like, what do you mean? That's just so small and so insignificant. Like, how are you going to lose sleep over that? Because I'm just not that way. And then all of a sudden I'm losing sleep, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh my God, this is how these people feel. This is what people mean when they're telling me that they're anxious and it's making them ill and they can't sleep at night. I understand now. So in a way, I suppose, for my own self-development and empathy, and it has been, I guess, a learning curve, and maybe something that I needed to go through.
Yeah. And I think, well, obviously you did get through it because the company's still here. So we will touch on that in a minute. But I suppose if someone is going to go through either working with an agent or an investor, from sort of the things you've learned, if you could go back or you could say to somebody, this is what I might have done differently. I mean, have you reflected on that? Do you think there is anything you could have done differently to potentially prevent these things or mitigate it or stop it sooner? Is there something you might do differently?
It's so hard because, for example, with Giuseppe, I did everything by the book. I had a contract, a steel contract as far as like the UK law and EU law is concerned. But when you realise the costs of actually taking someone to court, like your contract means nothing, because if you're owed 50 grand but you're going to spend 50 grand trying to get it back, there's just no sense in that to me. So to me, I feel like the legal system is a problem. But yeah, like I had that wrapped up as legally tight as I possibly could. Then I have this great relationship with him because I've worked with him 3 years. So obviously this 10th order of mine, I'm not even thinking. I'm just like, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. So it's for that point, I truly don't think there's much I could have done differently.
No.
Apart from maybe get a better gut feeling on a human being. Because, for me, I trusted him truly and wholly. So I don't feel that on that point there is really much I could have done.
Okay.
While as on the like the fraudulent investor point, yes, there must have been things I could have done, because this was not his first rodeo. He's been doing this for years. So if I would have investigated further, I would have been able to find more lawsuits against him. I would have, and I did do due diligence, but it was mainly Googling and, finding articles on them. And I knew that his name was his name. Like, I knew where he lived, all these types of things. But what I didn't realize, is all the things that, he was spouting, like, oh, he works alongside the Hard Rock Cafe. I should have probably picked up the phone and been like, hello, Hard Rock Cafe, have you ever heard about this guy?
Or maybe do some money laundering checks on the companies.
Exactly.
If you've done some money laundering checks, you might have found.
Yeah. Well, maybe. But I think the problem is that they just shut things down and start them again. And I think because they were American as well, I feel like I would have delved deeper if it was a UK company, because you've got Companies House, you've got a UK solicitor. He can look at things, and all about all the lawsuits that were happening. Whereas in America, it's like everything's done in a different state. They cover the tracks. They've got all the right press things, and I don't know. There's definitely more I could have done, and I should have done. Especially, I shouldn't have just gone, oh, I've had an introduction from someone I trust, that must mean he's fine. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
I should have straight away been thinking, right, is this too good to be true? Because it sounds like it is, so it probably is. And I think that's something I've learned now. I'm like, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Because why is this guy just going to come to me? I'm not in the best place financially, but he's like trying to throw all this money at me. He's, begging me to come and be the only wine on his island and the only wine at Hard Rock Cafe. And I should have gone, this is too good to be true, and then done more about it. But by the time I did that, it was too late. I'd already,
All right. Well, on a positive note, though, the company is still here. So although you thought I can't survive it, you obviously did. So how if you'd obviously lost at this point the 60k from the agent, and now you've racked up this debt. which I think was about 100K or something you said to me. So how did you then move forward without the investor then?
So basically, I was about to do a crowdfund. I thought, right, the only way I can survive this is if I get cash quick. And, the way I'm thinking about doing this is a crowdfund. So that's what I need to do, type of thing. And then I told my story on LinkedIn. So first things first, ask for some help, because it was eating me up inside. It was making me sick. Nobody knew. People knew, like, obviously, who worked with me, or my mum, dad, whatever, but nobody knew. So, people going, "Oh, Kath, you're smashing it," and I'm going, "I'm not," but I'm not telling them why. I'm just like, don't dare say that to me. I'm horrified by people are just trying to be nice. They think like, "Oh, you look like you're doing really well," but I was like, I'm not. Don't say anything to me. And I think I was probably horrible around that time. I'm just like, don't speak, leave me alone. I don't want to hear. But it came a point where I was like, only the truth will set me free. And I did a big video on LinkedIn and I said everything that had happened. And I was like, please help me. I don't know what to do. I need an investor. I need to raise money. I need, I literally, this is where I am. I've spent days crying and I'm going to lose my business. Please help. And actually people helped, whether it was people buying a bottle of wine off my website, which gave a tiny bit of cash into the business, to people introducing me to investors, to people adding me to groups, people saying they would do work for me free, small bits of consultancy work that could try and help. I had so many people offer to help me, and it pulled me out of the darkness. I think I was like, wow, people are good, and there is going to be a way to survive. The reason I actually survived is because I found another investor in the end, a very legitimate, nice, amazing person. And then after finding that amazing investor who got me through the first part, I'm still not fully out the other end, by the way. Things are still a struggle, but I'm here and we're going to survive it. It's fine. But we're not like fully out of it, like, woo, clear, full of money. It's not like that. It's, we're scraping on by. But I've recently got a huge, and I won't go into detail on this, but a huge deal with China, selling a large amount of bottles to China. And that will, when that actually is finished and done, that will pull us completely out of like all debt, all issues, and it will give us cash flow, to run comfortably for the next few years. So that's where we are. Still not fully out the other end, but still surviving, and we're gonna come out the other side great. So yeah, that's where we are.
Well, it's brilliant, Catherine. At the end of the day, yes, there's things that have gone wrong, but I think the most important lesson really is, you can get through it. And you did find another investor. I didn't realize you got one, but that's really good. But the fact is you got through the bad stage, and managing to pull yourself back out the other side, aren't you? So it's an interesting story, because I think especially in investments, I personally think so many people are always pushing for investments sometimes yours was a different scenario because obviously you lost that big amount of cash. But I do hear a lot of people go, oh, I need this big amount of money. And actually, sometimes they don't look internally first at opportunities. I know we've gone into businesses and turned probably £70,000-80,000 of cash around within a matter of 4 to 5 weeks, just from changing different things internally. So I do think sometimes people are quick to just always think they need large third-party investments, when actually there might be some short-term things they can do to help mitigate their situation without that need. So yeah. But anyway, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. I just want to say to our listeners, thank you for listening. We launched a new podcast in 2024. YouTube channel, because it was on my company account, but now we've got a Build and Exit YouTube. So I'd just like to say to all the listeners that if you love the episodes, hit the subscribe button, or leave us a rating and review, because it helps more listeners find our channel. And I'll see you again soon.